So, this morning we discuss generating bodhicitta and also reflect on karma. So this afternoon I'm continuously going to add a couple of other things that help us to really bring more peace when we're facing general difficult situations in our lives, and especially when we're facing death and dying, before that, after that. So, in Vajrayana Buddhism, the unique quality of Vajrayana Buddhism, we have these teachings and practices that help us to really connect with five senses. Not being too sensitive about what things happening externally. The appearance, the sound, the smell, taste, and the feelings. So I think it's something important quality to develop while we're alive, and especially we're practicing Vajrayana. It's the essence of Vajrayana to be able to transform five senses. Sometimes we can use, or we can say, transform five senses into wisdom. So the thing is, if we do not develop those qualities, skills now, when we're facing death and dying, five elements are dissolving, or after dissolved, one after another, our conscious mind is much more sensitive than today. So can feel things 100 times more. So therefore, using the bodhicitta, using the path of Dharma to really reduce sensitivities that we have towards appearance and all other four senses. Either those five senses bring attachment, anger, jealousy, pride, ignorance. Those are the five poisons, causing us to really continuously wandering in samsara. So in general Buddhist tradition, we have techniques, antidotes to work with anger, desire, attachment, and jealousy, and pride. But in Vajrayana Buddhism, we have more advanced skills to work with five senses, to help us to transform five senses. We need to really learn that. The whole thing of Bardo, of Dharmata, or Bardo of existence, or Bardo of living and dying, whether we really know how to transform or work with five senses or not. So having bodhicitta can be a really good foundation, and the top of that, really not while we're alive, letting ourselves to be too sensitive about things, external things and internal things. external things are appearance and sound, all these things we can be really sensitive. Internal things, of course, then, because of the condition of the five senses, external things cause as internal five poisons to accumulate negative karmas, which binding us in samsara. So that's something I would love to discuss. And then, yeah, can you add something?
Yeah. So it seems like the topic Rinpoche has brought up for this afternoon at this point anyway is how reactive we are to our sensory experience. And this actually really ties in a lot to gaining insight, I guess, into our own afflictive emotions, into our own conceptual patterns. Because again, our tendency is to blame. So, for example, if we walk into a room and the light is really blinding, we're uncomfortable, we might have a feeling of blame, like externally, right? So we might think, this room is uncomfortable because of that blinding light. Rather than thinking to ourselves, which would be more the style of a practitioner, like, why am I so sensitive towards like how the room looks? So we can see that sort of when we think about our sensory experiences, we have the expectation that we're going to enjoy them, or we have the expectation that what we see, hear, smell, taste, and touch, that all of it is going to be to our liking. And that everything should be comfortable for us, everything should be preferable, the way that we want it to be. And if we think about how that impacts our personality and our mental and emotional habits, the fact that we have these expectations of our sensory experience get us into a lot of trouble with everything else. So for example, if we want to walk into a room and feel comfortable in that room and we want it to be a certain way or feel a certain way, then we're likely to externalize and feel like we aren't responsible for the fact that we're uncomfortable, right? So there's this general tendency to put blame for discomfort on the outside. And again, this is really opposite to the tradition of mind training and training in bodhicitta, which Rinpoche brought up this morning. When we're training the mind, our goal is to put all of that responsibility onto ourselves. To think to ourselves, why do I have such a strong preference for things to be this way? And this really matters for training in bodhicitta, and it really matters for the way that our practice can progress. For example, at the moment of death, are we going to have the expectation that everything is going to be comfortable and look and sound and be the way that we want it to be so that we can die peacefully? Is that the expectation that we have? And for the rest of our lives, is what we have, is it the expectation for everything to be arranged and for us to experience everything just in the way that makes us feel comfortable how we are, so that we can be okay and continue to be a practitioner? And these things are unrealistic. It's unrealistic for everyone. There is no person, and this is a basic teaching of the Buddha Dharma. We're all constantly dissatisfied by everything. Our main experience of life is dissatisfaction, and we experience that through the five senses. We're dissatisfied with the appearances we see. We're dissatisfied with the sounds we hear. or we want them to continue on the way that they are, and they can't, right? Or smell, taste, and touch. We're really reacting to our five senses all the time, and then we're projecting and mistaking that into thinking the outer world is injuring us. But it's our wish or our preference or our attachment to the experience we want, which is causing us to not like what's happening in the outside world. So there's this kind of a sense of disconnect again. Like, are we really able to, is it realistic to think that we could ever arrange everything in the outside world in the way that's going to make us comfortable enough to feel like, oh, I have enough presence of mind to practice? And this reminds me of a quotation from Shantideva. It's not a literal translation, but basically the meaning of the quotation is, could we ever, if the whole world were covered with thorns, could we ever cut away enough of those thorns so that we would never get hurt? And then it goes on to say, no, a really intelligent person would put on a pair of really thick-soled shoes so that they could walk wherever they wanted to. They would be okay with all of those thorny and painful situations that are going on in the outside world because they would have worked on their own mind. And that directly relates to what Rinpoche is introducing about our sensitivity to the world. If we can't, in a metaphoric sense, like put on a really thick pair of shoes over our own mind and heart, not meaning to cut off the outside world, but meaning to be able to relate to how painful it is. If we can't find a way to bravely face that, there just isn't any other way to reduce our own suffering. If we're uncomfortable and agitated by everything that's happening all the time, then that's the way that we're going to be. We're the only ones who have the capability to become more tolerant, more patient, more accepting, more satisfied. We're the only ones who have the ability to do that, and so that is what it means to start to transform the mind, right? If we can accept whatever is happening outside of us without reacting so strongly to it, then we can see there's a direct benefit in the stability of our own minds. We're going to have fewer emotions because we don't have as much hope and expectation for things to be the way that we want it to be. And a lot of Buddhism can sometimes seem depressing in a sense because really what we're trying to do is emotionally bring ourselves to accept the fact that life is full of suffering and it's not going to be the way we want it to be. And that lots of unwanted things are going to happen and that we have to accept them. And that there just isn't there's no other way forward with practice until we get to the point where we can accept a lot of the things that we don't like about our lives. We just aren't able to practice because we're too preoccupied with trying to fix those things or trying to change those things or trying to blame those things. So this topic of sensitivity is a very, very important topic because it is our sensitivity as Americans. And in our culture, I think we put a lot of importance on that sensitivity. And we think, there's certain ways in which that sensitivity is valuable. It's valuable as being a basis for compassion, for connection, relating to people. But when we put that sensitivity into an extreme, the way that we do many times, you can meet people they don't want to go out into a crowd of people because they feel too sensitive to be there. And then, it raises the question, well, is that your issue or is that the issue of the outside world? Like, is the outside world really something that we're trying to run away from? People say, like, I don't want to read the newspaper because there's too many stories of suffering and I don't want to connect with that. But is that your problem or is that the problem of the outside world? The outside world is that way. And it's going to continue to be that way. And there's nothing that we can do to change it except for changing ourselves. So I'm sure she's going to talk more about how we work with that sensitivity, but I think it's important to recognize that from the point of view of a practitioner, putting so much emphasis on our five senses and if we like or dislike the experiences we're having, makes it extremely difficult to practice. Because we're just always wrapped up then in if we like the experience or not, or if we think we should be having the experience or not, or if it's okay with us that we're having the experience or not. And in a sense, we need that really, those thick soul shoes. You know, we need to be able to feel like my goal as a human being is to be able to go out into the world and be anywhere and be okay with that. Because that's how I maintain bodhicitta. If I can be anywhere and be with anyone, I can definitely serve sentient beings. But if I think I can serve beings as long as I have this and this and this, and this is okay with me, and this is like this, there's just no way that we can even think about benefiting others. Because we have too many conditions and preferences on ourselves. We're so focused on ourselves. This is what I need to be okay. This will bother me too much. This will be too agitating. You know, so I think there's a lot of things that we can do. You know, actually just even recognizing that that sensitivity harms us, or that we cause our own suffering through that sensitivity helps us place less importance on it. But then, of course, there's many other techniques that we can use, so I'll let Rinpoche share.
So it's really important. You may not connecting the topic, but things that we discussed and then this thing we're discussing right now will help us get through death and dying and living happily. It will help us a lot if we learn how. The thing is, we try to fix the world, external world. We have never tried to fix our own mind and emotions. We have not even realized that that's fixable, or we can do it. If we fix the root of suffering and the pain, is it coming from here, 5 poisons, automatically we can fix the world. Then there's no obstacle to facing death and dying or changes or any suffering. We can perfectly fit in that like a body in body. We can adopt the situation. We can tolerate the situation. Whatever is going on. We're not disconnecting the external world. We're much more connected. The rest of the world. And we're much more alert what's going on. Because we're not agitated by 5 poisons. We can be much more skilled. We have much more method to tolerate or to transform the situation which is happening externally. So this is the reason the masters of Buddhist tradition, they can fit in any situation, any circumstances, they can handle it. They can tolerate. Then, actually, what else worse is out there after dying? You know, if we learn how to face this crazy world, actually, we do not need to think. There's like a hellrum, like 1 million miles under this earth. We do not need to think that. Whether we believe or not believe, we do not need to believe in it. Hellrum is on the earth. And not just on the earth externally, hellrum is internally here. So we just need to learn this skill, not to be too sensitive about everything, appearance, sound. When there's a beautiful appearance, we grasp on it. We immediately attach to it. That's also root of samsara. When there is an ugly thing, we hate it. We are agitated by that appearance, and we generate hatred or anger towards that. That's also the cause of samsara, and that pulls us down into samsara. And that same thing, the sound, the smell. So when we're dying, it seems really much more intense. The appearances, the sound, the smell, taste, everything is going to be so strong and sensitive. So therefore, in Vajrayana Buddhism, those realized lamas, they can liberate five senses on the spot. That's what we call Tokpa or Mahamudra. Anger appears, they can liberate. Attachment arises, they can liberate. But to be able to develop this kind of skill, we really need to learn how to slowly, as Allison was saying, fix this five poisons and reduce this. How to really connect with and tolerate the situation. We will never ever be able to find a perfect place that we can fit until we fix the mind and patterns that we have. We will never. We have not succeeded. We tried. We moved a lot. Especially in the West, you can move a lot. Maybe this Dharma community is not working for you. It does not fit. And you can move another one. It's not going to fit, for sure. In Tibet, we have an animal called Dilorgan. It's a tiny red, tip of the tail is black.
It's a rodent.
Smells terrible. So this animal moves around all the time, changes his own all the time. Every time when this animal started to change the home, thinks the home has the problem. The place has the problem because the place starts to smell so bad. And then change another place. And then realizing that the place is again smell not that great. And then change again. That's how we human beings do. We wanted to find a perfect place that we fit. And finding that comfort. But until we fix this things going on inside of us, wherever we go, Haram is on the earth. We cannot, it doesn't matter you accept or not accept. You do not need to, it's here. Not here outside, it's here inside. In Vajrayana teachings say, Haram or Loram or samsara is based on created our emotions, by our emotions, nothing else. If our emotion is like this all the time, and we're constantly wandering in samsara, constantly wandering in those realms, lower realms. So it's something so important. That's the reason Gautama masters, such as George Adisha, and his followers, I encourage you, really read those biographies. There are so many translations. And Well Bodhisattva, and Rinpoche's biographies. Because of this, they worked on Lojong so much. And they realized fixing in our mind and emotions is the best way to fix everything external. Like a Tibetan lamas who went to jail and being in jail for some reason. Well, that was the best place to retreat. Who thinks that? Because they fixed their emotions, their mind. One of the lama who came to consecrate my center, Tukataki, he spent 17 years in jail. He said, like, that transformed him. So they realized how to tolerate, how to fit in the environment. So if we can develop that when death is coming, or we're starting to facing a difficult situation, we're ready to fit, we're ready to tolerate, we're ready. Sometimes like this transformation is a Vajrayana Buddhist term, but even Lojong teachings, Lojong practice, we can really transform these things based on Lojong teachings, based on bodhicitta. Of course, when we talk about the Dzogpa Chenpo and the Mahamudra, they don't need to try, they can liberate constant. Because they do not chase emotions. They do not chase the appearance, whether it's beautiful or not beautiful, or in the middle, or sound is beautiful or not beautiful, or ugly. They do not have that pattern to chase whatever they see, whatever they hear. Therefore, they can constantly being able to remain in the mind nature. That's what we call Dharmakaya. But to be able to do that, just think, where our mind is just like this rough water or this waves, constantly one after another. There's no break, like a constant. Then we cannot find space to rest or be in mind nature. It's harder to understand what mind nature is, but it's much harder to abide in that state. So therefore, using the Lojong, using the bodhicitta, and to connect the five senses, not letting our pattern to create more dramas, and to try to not fix the around external things, try to fix internal, which is our mind. That's the reason those Lojong masters say, we do not need a stick to point others' faults. We need a mirror to watch our mind and to make this appearance of our emotions or mind more beautiful. Not just say, okay, that's this person, that lady's fault, and this guy's fault. Not that. Then we can really, using this simple teaching of the Lojong and the bodhicitta, to be able to face death and the dying. So, I suggest you really try to work inwardly more than arranging the external world around. It exhausts you. It drives you crazy because you are incapable of fixing everything around you and make you feel okay. Maybe you can fix something temporarily, but things are impermanent. It will change again. Then you need to try to fix it again. And you may be able to succeed. Then it will change again. So it's really exhausting to really try to arrange things around us. It's better to work on the quality of our mind. So this is the reason Rinpoche said, 真的让你 If the Dharma practice is not helping you change the way you think and your emotions, then the Dharma, the effort, the practice you do is just pretended or lip service. So we really need to examine ourselves where my Dharma practice is going. Is my mind changing a little bit? Is my self-attachment decreasing a little bit? Am I becoming more like patient? Am I becoming more tolerant? And am I becoming less emotional? Generally, similar Mapan, the Rinpoche similar Keper Mandugna. Look at native shaking mind. If there is no change in the mind, even if you go in a cave, do not see anyone for 100 years, there's no benefit. It's just you're exhausting yourself. So there's a reason Rinpoche said that. So that can happen to all of us, not just to you guys. I'm sitting on this throne and saying that. And it can happen to a lot of Buddhist teachers. So we really need to be honest and watch ourselves. And if we have some findings, some like flaws, we should work harder and improve ourselves to change. Other ways, effort on the path of Buddha Dharma is not going to really benefit us that much. Then we end up maybe worse than ordinary being to face death and die. So that's something you need to think and watch yourself. If you're really attached to appearance, try to make your mental quality or emotional quality more beautiful, finding that beauty inside of you. Not try to chase to find some beauty external. If you have this pattern to have some like attached to the sound the same way, and the taste, and the smell. So those 5 senses are really important to watch and develop. Then we may see fearful things when we're facing death and dying or after death. We can tolerate. We can use it as a condition of our Dharma practice. We may hear things. I'm sure a lot of you have read a book about Bardo, and all those sound, all those appearances, all those rays of lights seems really scary and fearful. But if we really know how to transform them now, not attached to it, those are not going to be the obstacle for us to connect the path of Dharma in our body states. This is what I remember one of really realized and learned at Khenpo from Tibet. I went to see him a long time ago. Khenpo Chukya. You may know who he is, you may not, but he lived like a beggar. So when he gave teachings, the end of the teaching, he always said, "Hey guys, after I die, please do not make my body important. If you do not feel like If you're not disgusted by like a really, really dirty body, and just put it into there's a river, into that river, feed the fish. If my body looks so disgusting and just to burn this like humble house with the body, and you guys do not need to do anything the traditional way. And the police do not need any other like big ritual things after I die. Everything, whatever happens after I die, I should be ready now. And if something I did good now, I do not need to worry or have any fears. So I probably took care of myself. So he used to say that a lot. So humble, so simple, so relaxed, so educated. And in the same way, especially we live in the West, we don't know after we die what is going to happen or while we're dying. Maybe your Dharma brothers and the Dharma sisters are around. But everything you have to, this independency is really important in this culture, right? You spiritually need to be independent. Finding that independency. Independence. You need to do that. Because environment is really different. It's not like Tibet. You have to have confidence to spiritually being able to take care of yourself while you're facing death and death. If you're lucky, you may have a few Dharma brothers and sisters around to supporting you. But it depends on us, our personality, and our friendship with the Dharma brothers and the Dharma sisters. So yesterday I remembered that teaching by Kambochuka, thinking like, yeah, he was like right a moment giving this death and dying teachings and encouraging Western students like, really, we really need to practice and put the Dharma first. And making sure have some confidence in us spiritually. The view, the meditation, the conduct of Dharma. We need that confidence in us. If we're lucky, maybe Dharma brothers, Dharma sisters, or even like family members will be there and do things what you want while you're facing death and dying or after that. But there's a really high chance family members may not follow your instructions. You need to be that person, okay? It doesn't matter. My daughter or my wife or my husband comes like disturbing all kinds of things, emotions, all kinds of things are going on while you're facing death and dying or after that. I have to be solid. I have to be able to tolerate the appearance, sound, whatever things externally going on. Then you will have confidence in your path and you can face death and dying. This happens a lot. I have been teaching death and dying for 7 years, I think. Dedicated Dharma practitioners, when they're facing death and dying, family completely cut connections, the Zangmo. And you're completely by yourself. Even though Sangha wants to do something to make sure Dharma brother or Dharma sister is like on the right track. But family say no. Now we can take care of my mother or my father. then when that is happening, then how much agitation can arise from that? You have hope, okay, my Dharma brother, my Dharma sister are going to be there to help me, guide me, be my backside. But then they don't show up, you may have a lot of emotions and disappointment. So all these things are possible, can happen, any of us in this culture. So that's the reason we need more confidence in our spirituality and practice. We need more skills to handle our emotions. And then it depends on the person. And then sometimes people who are dying, they're so open and family is so happy, letting Dharma brothers, sisters be there. Like a number of Dharma students passed away after they took down with confidence program, things like that. And then Dharma brothers, sisters were almost sitting and on the side of the bed like 24 hours reciting the things that they used to practice. Things like that. If that kind of circumstances comes up, we're so lucky, we should rejoice. But also we need to prepare how really we can find this confidence in us. It doesn't matter what circumstances that we end up to die. So that's the reason I'm trying to say we really need to learn this skill to tolerate. The best way or more profound way is to transform the five senses into the path. Really, really important. And together, it's completely different. Whole Sangha, whole family, be here, inviting others, and giving teachings, giving Poa practice, giving instruction how to really work on Poa practice, things like that, so they can die spiritually in a traditional way. But we may have that circumstances, but we may not. Some of my students, this is maybe going to help you. They have serious illness, internal illness, and they prepared spiritual instructions. Each of family members, according to with their connection with the spirituality. So they're that prepared. Preparations for wife, serious about doing the things. Preparations for daughter, for boys, and for grandkids, even took out the verses from Vayava Bodhisattva. And have the instructions say okay, and I will love you do this after I die, or while I'm dying. They're that prepared. So we all can think that way, develop ourselves, how to work with, not always just fixing, projecting. Problem is coming from us, external. Problem is always generated from in us. And then also prepare. Some of you came here, probably I'm going to say something death and dying. If you want to prepare, then work on Vayava Bodhisattva, develop these qualities that we discussed, and prepare those. You don't know who goes first. You can prepare things for the Sangha that you all practice together. And then you can prepare things that your family members can do spiritually, fulfilling your spiritual wishes. Written, something we value here, right? If there's a document, we value, we respect that more than verbal stuff. And together we do not need to write things. Those masters, when they face death and dying, way before, they give up everything, make offerings, and give away for the community. And when they're dying, they don't have things to attach to. So we're not like that. We have a car, we have houses, we have grandkids, we have so many pairs of shoes, we have so many pairs of socks, so many pairs of underwear, all kinds of things. And we need to mentor being able to let go of those things. Not just to physically get up and get rid of those things. So our preparation for death and dying needs much more focus than Tibetans. Tibetans may have like 2 or 3 sets of clothing. Most of lamas, maybe modern lamas, never had even like pants or underwears to get rid of, or socks to get rid of. But it's not like that. When I think around, like, when we're facing death and dying, if I attach to this, we think it's spiritual. I'm finished. That attachment is the obstacle. It doesn't matter. We think, okay, I don't have a lot of stuff, but whatever we attach to, that's it. So to be able to have this skill to let things go, we really need to prepare. And I encourage you to work on the daily practice. I encourage you, if you're a part of it, well, it seems we have another talk tomorrow, but it seems like many different people, but if you are a part of this Sangha, Sangha is important. If you have a really good connection with the Sangha, when you're facing death and dying, it really helps you a lot. That's the reason in the Dying with Confidence there's a trusted Dharma friends, or a Dharma box, or all those things. It's not just me as a skillful teacher. Because of Allison, we work together and things really make sense for Western practitioners. So death comes any moment. Maybe one of us are going to be gone. You're not going to come back tomorrow. Because life is impermanent. So while we have opportunities, don't miss it. Work on daily practice. When I say daily practice, every single day. Not like today, one an amazing couple this week and then get back on the practice next week. Not like that. Look, every day work on your daily practice. And try to really connect with the Sangha. Sangha is important. When we take refuge, Buddha, the Dharma, Sangha, right? Lama, Sangye, Chu, Genda. Sometimes we say, take refuge in the Lama, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. Sangha is this ordinary Sangha. Can be like a noble Sangha, but unfortunately we could not meet or be in that kind of Sangha. We're in this. Also, we're not that bad. We're having an ordinary Sangha. So Sangha is really important. That's the refuge where we take it. That Sangha can help us really get into the hard things that we need to face, and then when we're facing death and dying. Really important. Life is impermanent. When we're facing death and dying, what? We have nothing. You cannot put your house on a really big truck and take it to Barber. You cannot drive a model home to Barber. You cannot. You have to accept, leave everything behind. including this body, how much we attached, how much we cherish, but we haven't. And our loved ones, we do not want to leave them behind, but we do not have any choice. We have to accept, leave them. Then what comes with us? Whatever patterns we have now, that's there. It's like a shadow. If we have this anger or emotions, it's there, automatically there. And then with that, whatever karma we accumulated, it's there. Then we do not need to physically fall into somewhere called hell. We're just in that emotional hell. While we're alive, we're in that emotional hell, and after we die, we're going to be in that, and after that, it's going to be stronger and stronger. So therefore, really try to develop your practice and cherish this life, the opportunity you have, the sangha you have, the spiritual connection you have. So if we really want to do that, then we really need these conditions, sangha, and the practices, and the preparations. The most preparation is why we should practice while we're alive. And be ready. Because we don't know when that comes. We need to be ready for any moment, any time when that comes. Or we need to be ready, whatever changes that is going to happen to our society or the family or our relative or our loved ones. We need to be ready to face that. We need to be ready to accept that situation.
Sure. When Rinpoche was talking, I was thinking more about the sensitivity that we have, and what is the great. I'm sure there's a lot of mistakes that we're making. What is the really big mistake that we're making that causes us to not be able to tolerate all the different objects of the senses? It seems that when something is happening which is unwanted, we either think that it's going to last forever, or something is happening and we enjoy it, and then we realize that it's not going to last forever, or we want it to last forever. And both of these have to do with the way that we make a mistake and think that things which are impermanent are permanent. And this is something that we're doing all the time, and as a result, when sensory experiences are happening that we don't like, we don't want to tolerate them, or we don't realize that we should tolerate them because they'll be over soon. You know, instead we, like Rinpoche said, we try to fix something on the outside world, thinking if I could just change that and make that thing the way I want it to be, like, I'll feel better. So I was thinking about the way that relates to the whole of ordinary life in the Dharma is described through the metaphor of a dream. So like all of ordinary life is a dream, and then when we awaken from that dream, we would experience wisdom. And in fact, bodhicitta, the etymology of the word bodhicitta, is awakened mind. So when we've woken up from that dream of samsara, and when we experience realization, we would be experiencing ultimate bodhicitta. And omniscient Longchen, who was the another great lineage master of the Longchen, taken by the founder of the Longchen. He had a wonderful quotation that I really love, which is about impermanence and about dreams. So he said, reflect on the nature of appearances as being just like last night's dream. And to me, this is a really powerful quotation because it points out the way that we relate to sensory experiences, and then also, sort of the mistake that we make. So when we have a dream, often when we're having the dream, we feel like it's real. When we're actually experiencing the dream, if we don't realize we're dreaming, it seems completely real and vivid. And then we wake up from the dream, and probably for a few moments that dream still seems real and vivid, but we realize we were dreaming. So we don't expect the dream right now to be real, because we realize it was a dream, even though we still might have the feeling that it's a dream. But then, even though when we first wake up from a dream, we might be able to describe it in a lot of detail, and we feel like, I can really explain all the things that happened, it's so real. As the day passes, we start to notice that we forget all the details. And then eventually, even if that dream was a nightmare or the dream was really intense, generally we forget the emotional connection to the dream. And then eventually we forget the dream entirely. And that's a pretty normal thing. When we wake up, we dream every night, and throughout the day, we may have even the memory of what the dream was, but we lose that connection to the sensory experience of the dream. And nobody expects a dream to be real. We all know a dream isn't real. So there's really no difference between that and the sensory experiences we have when we're awake. So according to the way that we view samsara or ordinary life, everything that's happening around us right now is just like a dream. It's illusory. We believe that it's real. But from the point of view of wisdom, it's not real. From the point of view of ultimate reality, it's not real. It's just a bunch of mistakes that we're making. We're attributing reality to things which are impure and illusory, impermanent, compounded. But we're making them solid and real and lasting. We're labeling them, we're imputing names, we're connecting dualistically, we're putting subject-object grasping on top of them. So all these different mistakes that we're making make us not realize that the life around us is like a dream. And then we have sensory experiences on top of that, and those sensory experiences seem really vivid and lasting, but we don't think of them as being like last night's dream, whereas even if it was a really bad nightmare, when we wake up, we realize the nightmare wasn't real, nothing really happened. And then slowly throughout the day, we even forget the details, and it's easy to let that situation go. But in our waking life, if we feel like a kind of a nightmare happens in our waking life, the attachment we have to that is completely different, because we can't see it as being like a dream. We relate to it as being real and lasting and permanent. And because we're relating to everything as being real and lasting and permanent, we feel justified to make our sensory experiences this important. We feel like we're being self-protective. We feel like we're doing something good for ourselves. This is very different than relating to all of our experiences like last night's dream, where we just realize we can let them go, and they're naturally going to fade away, and they're impermanent, and they were never real to begin with. So I think, in the tradition of mind training, oftentimes a metaphor or a verse or a story told by a master, all of these will become the means for applying the Dharma. And so here in this example, Omniscient Longchenpa is giving an instruction, like how can we relate to our sensory experiences? The nature of appearances is all like last night's dream. It's going to change. It was never real to begin with. We were making a mistake from the very beginning. And we don't have to make it that important. And we can use this way of thinking to remind ourselves, to train ourselves over and over again. When all of these things are happening in the world around us and we're reacting to them over and over and over again, we can think to ourselves, is it really, should I be making it this important? Should I be making what's happening in the outside world so important in my mind? So let it agitate me so much. And if we really think what's happening on the outside world is just like last night's dream, then rather than focusing on the appearance of it, instead we can focus on making our mind stable, which is what we need to do. If ultimately we want to reduce our own suffering so that we can serve others, we have to find a lot of mind stability amongst a very chaotic and dissatisfactory world. You know, we're not going to fix that world. So if we're going to fix what's inside, like Rinpoche said, the first way that we fix what's inside is just by focusing on ordinary mind stability. You know, I'm not going to let my emotions overwhelm me right now. I'm not going to let my conceptual patterns overwhelm me right now. Because for the majority of, for the most part, I can think of, back to myself when I was younger, before I started practicing the Dharma. Otherwise, everything that happens is like the sky is falling, right? So something happens and it's unwanted and it's just devastating. And it's a really intensely painful way to live when we can't have any mind stability. But on the other hand, if that mind stability is something we want, we have to start viewing things outside of us as being more like the dream that they are, or having an illusory nature, or thinking it's like last night's dream. It seems really vivid and real right now, but it's just going to fade and go away. Emotionally, we may not be relating to it that way, but intellectually, at least, we can. And if we can intellectually start to relate with things that way, we have more energy or more attention to focus on our mind stability. So this really basic mind stability, I think, is the basis for everything else. How are we going to train in bodhicitta? How are we going to improve our motivation if we can't have enough mind stability even to recognize that we've lost our motivation? Or, for example, if a loved one is ill or dying and we're completely overwhelmed by what's happening outside of us, then how do we have enough mind stability to try to take care of them or love them or look after them, right? We're always going to be a person who wants the person next to us to take care of us. We're never going to be the person who can take care of someone else in a really genuine, selfless way. So I can really relate to this discussion on sensitivity to the external world. I think that it's probably everyone's greatest fault. We're always attributing so much lasting, permanent reality to what's going on outside that it seems like it's more important to fix that. If that's what's real, we should fix that. And the Lojong tradition, the tradition of Dharma, is just completely the opposite. That tradition says, if you fix what's in here, the outside world looks a lot better. If you try to fix the outside world, you'll fix it for a minute, and you'll still hate it, because you're dissatisfied. So, I was just thinking about that quotation, especially this one, reflecting on the nature of appearances as being like last night's dream. That one always really sticks with me, because I think everybody can really relate to the metaphor of the dream.
So, therefore, this is advice. It's not a teaching. If you really truly want to practice Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism, I'm sure you all have your spiritual guidance. I already mentioned the Sangha, how important the Sangha is. But I encourage you, find that karmically connected spiritual teacher. Find a genuine, authentic spiritual teacher who the best is, who is embodying the bodhicitta. Really, really important. This is something we have to have when we practice Vajrayana Buddhism. We all are different, as I said. you have different karma connections with the different teachers. That doesn't mean some teachers are good and better than the others. It's not. We need to find that karmically connected spiritual teacher who can guide us properly. Really, really important. This spiritual connection is more than a marriage. Marriage is this lifetime commitment. Spiritual connection with the Dharma brothers, sisters, and the spiritual guidance is until we reach enlightenment. That connection is really, really important. There are a lot of misunderstandings between Tibetan lamas and Western students. So many miscommunications. And culturally, it's really hard to understand each other. But without spiritual guidance, who knows ourselves more than us, we need a spiritual teacher like that. And that spiritual teacher can help us. But also I advise you, do not wear that mask. Have a wall between Lama and student. Just relax and slowly show yourself, your weaknesses. And the Lama can guide you. And that help you to really face death and die. That help you to mature your spiritual path and practice. That's really most important thing, having spiritual guidance in Vajrayana Buddhist tradition. Especially when we're talking about death and dying in the Bardo practice. Without that kind of spiritual teacher, we won't have any real ability to recognize Bardo Dharma that is apparent. We have to have a proper way to guide us, instructed us, how to recognize each Bardo states. You cannot learn that skill reading Bardo books. You cannot. That need to develop emotional, experiential level, as I mentioned last night. So to be able to develop that experiential level of realization based on Vajrayana Buddhism, without spiritual guidance and Sangha's support, we won't be able to find that skill. So therefore, if you have your spiritual guidance, develop the connection strongly. This is what I have been seeing. And I'm a direct Lama, you may be not know, but I'm really a direct person. I can be really intense. You may feel like I'm pretty relaxed, laid back. Not at all. But what I'm trying to say is, really, really need to make sure having that kind of connection. But what I have been seeing is Western spiritual connection between Lama and student become really strong for a while. Then we just, and then that connection vanishes. That's not going to help us. It's good to really connect with the spiritual Sangha. Again, Sangha connection really is strong for a while, and we cannot maintain it, it vanishes. Then that spiritual path cannot help us to improve, to reach another level. So if we cannot reach another level, how can we really face the death and the dying? How can we prepare to really transform the things that are going to happen in Bardo? We want to be able do that. We cannot take like a college courses for 2 months and then drop it and then go to find like a higher price, a big law firm, or make like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month. It's impossible in even a worldly life point of view. So we need to be logical and learn how to really develop that connection with the Sangha, with the Dharma brothers, Dharma sisters, and the spiritual teacher. You feel that connection. And then I like just, oh yes, connection, okay. Move too fast. Not like that. Feel the connection. Ah, yeah, okay, this alone. I need to look at this alone from many different ways. Oh, yeah. And how is it going to look and examine you too? So then that connection becomes so strong. Then Vajrayana, there's no obstacle for our Vajrayana path and practice. And slowly, maybe best ways, improving month by month or year by year. Or maybe every decades, our spiritual practice is going to improve. If we do not give up on Dharma and connect with the Dharma, connect with the spiritual teachers, Sangha, spiritual journey sooner or later is going to improve. When people come to say, Rinpoche, can I be your student? I never say yes. Time will tell. And if you can maintain that Dharma, automatically that connection is going to happen. Even if I say, oh great, like we have this great connection and just talk sweetly, it's not going to happen. Everything is hard. Getting rid of emotion is about the mind. Developing that connection with the Sangha is hard. Developing that connection with the spiritual teacher is hard. And developing that connection with the lineage, it's hard. So it's something really, really important for all of you. I'm sure you know it. But if you know it, just review and you take this as a reminder. If you have not found that kind of connection, consider yourself to find one at one point. Not just wandering here and there, want a spiritual teacher and want a spiritual community, but do not want to commit. It doesn't work that well when you want to really have a spiritual practice, spiritual teachers. I tell people do not be a coyote. Walk around. Just come in. Enjoy the path. Enjoy the practice. And improve yourself. And be a part of the mandala. And support the mandala. That helps all of you to really facing the death and the dying. And really help you to maybe taste the bodhicitta. So that's some kind of advice. I say this every single place I go, and I encourage people and to really stick with the Dharma, stick with the Sangha. Best is not try to change things all the time. That's the habit Western culture have. That's a weakness. It doesn't work when you're in the spiritual world. Finding a spiritual a community, you have the community here. Beautiful community. And be a part of that. And learn how to really serve the Dharma and serve others. Learn how to really apply the bodhicitta and the long-term practice. And make sure really well bodhisattva. Really, it really helps. make sure read 37 practices of the Bodhisattva. If it's possible, receive those teachings, instructions, as many as you can in this lifetime. It really helps to improve Vajrayana path, the practice. It really helps to increase the quality of Vajrayana. So if we do that, if you all do that, then you are not wasting that time. And you are preparing death and dying and after that. So daily practice and all the things I mentioned are really important for death and dying. And I will take a short break. Let you ask some questions if you have something to add, you can, and then maybe we can do some sitting meditation or whatever comes the next. Yes. What's your name?
Emily.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been here?
I've only come here a few different retreats, and so for a few months.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long have you been interested in Buddhism?
About 7 or 8 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a hospice nurse, and so most of the people I help are coming from a Christian perspective,
Right.
with a lot of fear, anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to know 2 parts of the question. One is how to help them when they come from such a different perspective, but then also your opinion on the use of medications for anxiety, agitation during the dying process. Because the Western...
For the dying person, you mean, right?
For the dying person, yeah. The Western medical model is more to treat these symptoms with medications, especially the agitation, the fear, the anxiety, even sometimes the physical symptoms, the breathing. So as a hospice nurse, I give a lot of these medications. And so what is your opinion?
Well, I think normally I don't have any problem to give medications to the patients, but also it's like it's always depends on who we're talking about. You know, if you are a really strong spiritual practitioner, because of the practice, they may not want to take strong medicine, but maybe a little bit reduce their pain. And their mental state is really different. And they might say, like, I do not need pain medicine. And they are completely ready to either listen to their teachings or practice, or Dharma brothers or sisters are reciting or reading the texts or instructions that they use to practice. It's a completely different situation. But like your case, you have to offer something. Otherwise, they cannot take it physically, mentally, emotionally. So I don't think I have an answer say like, oh, it's not a good idea to give a medicine. But the thing is, you're a nurse, right? Probably you have seen so many of these. So you can use your insight or your experience how much they need to calm their fears, anxiety a little bit down, and physical pain down. That's the other. What was the other?
So the first part of your question was like, how do you help people who are coming from a more Christian background. So can you explain a little bit more why you asked that? Is that because you don't come from a Christian background, so you're not sure how to connect with them, or because you want to use the Buddhist teachings, but you want to say it in a way that benefits them? I'm just not exactly sure where your question is coming from.
I do come from a very Christian background, personally. I will say that my observation, my opinion only, has been that many people are coming with a lot of fear, fear of going to hell, fear of punishment, very much that punishment and reward system, and they are coming into this, and their families coming into this also with that fear of their loved one leaving. And so if I have a Buddhist perspective of non-attachment and not having that much fear, it's just very hard to translate it if someone is coming from the completely opposite direction. But and I do have a Christian background, so sometimes I find myself going in that, coming from a Christian background to try to bring comfort, just trying to bring some comfort or peace during that time.
I think the best way is finding a way to make them to see. Everyone has to face death in the dawn, and have to go through that process, and not just them. And as I said, not let them just grasping on the past or hang on. And if they can relax, not having a lot of fears, and accept the reality, whatever they have to face, may help them finding some comfort. But when people are in that state, most of the time it's hard to calm them down, because that fear is so strong, that guilt is so strong. And for the family members, maybe they can take responsibility, not really expressing a lot of emotions that feed the person who is facing death and dying. So emotion even make things even worse. So it's a tricky question and really hard. But the thing is, it's weird though. Do you consider yourself a Buddhist? Yeah? If you practice bodhicitta, bodhisattva, they feel it. And they feel it, not just to feel it, that can calm the person. Really. Even holding the hand and having this genuine motivation. And they feel it, and they can really benefit by that. But that needs a lot of bodhicitta. I have seen that when people are so fearful, and when they are facing death and dying, really fearful. I used to go with my mom a lot to do poem. And the minute he's there, and he touches his hand on the head of this person, something just completely cool down. I always think that's the power of bodhicitta. Of course, it's power of realization. So the more you're calmer and skilled, that help the person who is dying, and also help to find comfort for the family members. I think we all share this compassion, loving kindness. So if you can help them to connect at that level, that's the uncommon thing. We all, Buddhists, Christian, or Catholic, or whatever, all religions share that common. And that's something really beneficial. So maybe that's the answer, I think.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes.
So I have a question about the decision whether or not to donate your organs as a Buddhist. I read a little bit about it in the Dying with Confidence book. To me it sounds like it's a personal decision and it needs to be made with the intention of bodhicitta. Is there any negative? I also understand that the body sometimes needs to be not touched.
Right.
So sometimes those two things, I guess I'm confused on which I will choose. Any harm that may come of one or the other.
It's a really good question. And also it's perfect connect to the discussion that we have today. So I do think it's really good to make those donations, donate organs. But to be able to have that willingness and no regrets and no doubts needs a lot of bodhicitta. And not just need a lot of bodhicitta. If you have a bodhicitta, really, if you are a donor, how much your organs will benefit that person who received that part of your organ. So it's like a really bodhisattva activity and a bodhisattva practice. Maybe in the book I was not like really definitely yes or no, because we need to make sure. Allison is one of those. And you need to make sure you don't have any problem when they come like a minute, something happened to you and open your body and then, you have to be like a joke bag, the person who offer your body, that you offer your body to all kinds of beings. Then you will be fine. Whatever is happening after that, whether they open your body and then take some part of your body out and then just put it into something, like all these things, not going to disturb you. So this depends on how strong our bodhicitta is, how prepared we are. So if we're a donor, I'm not, we need to make the bodhicitta really strong. And even maybe we want practice, should practice, combine the joy and the bodhicitta, offer our body and everything, and really learn the paramita of generosity. Then that would help. Other ways, like you may have a lot of regret to see that's happening, because we really are attached to our body. So other than that, I don't think there's any really risk or problem being an organ donor. It's a wonderful thing. But if you're an organ donor, you really want to work on Bodhisattva and the practice of Jod. If we really accomplish those two, it would be wonderful. Are you one of those?
I was, and then I am not, and so now maybe I'm
work on Bodhisattva. Really, read it. Not just reading it. Apply it. Emotional apply it. And there's a group of my students really reading Bodhisattva. They committed to really study and read 108 times in their lifetime. And some of them are memorizing the root text. And some of them like pulling the verses out from 37, Bodhisattva, and applying. They find the hardest verses that can work with. So I think it's good to do that, and then you can make the final decision.
I do practice chud.
You do? What kind of chud do you practice?
Magic Lobtrong.
Okay.
So maybe once a month, a group meets here to do some chud practice.
Wonderful. Being able to chud, genuine, authentic chud, depends on the bodhicitta. If you lack bodhicitta, bodhisattva path, you are not a genuine chud practitioner. So chud is wonderful, but also have to have the foundation of bodhisattva path and logic. Then chud can really benefit others. I cannot say things for all of us, but we're not realized beings to do chud based on our Dzogpa Chenpo or Mahamudra. So we need a strong, solid foundation. Good. Okay. Yes.
There was one Rinpoche that was here who said that in an organ donation situation, that the practitioner, the physician who removed the organs, if that resulted in the person's actual death, that it was a negative situation. In other words, that person was taking on a lot of negative karma for doing that, removing the organ. Do you understand what I'm saying? The doctor that actually removed the organ.
So are you talking about a situation not where the person's dying and the organ's been removed, but like a kidney or
dying,
something?
but oftentimes they have to take it while the person's still breathing and living.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
so he was saying that the doctor, the team
Okay.
that was, you understand?
Yeah. So she's saying that she heard that if a doctor is removing the organ while the person's still alive, that isn't the doctor accumulating the karma of killing the person.
I don't think we can have this final, answer that answers or cut through everyone's doubts. Because it's karma again. And therefore, we cannot, doctor's job is either saving one life and letting go of another, or losing both. It's a critical decision. From that point of view, I wouldn't think going to create a really negative karma. Saving one life instead of another makes sense, but also it's hard to say okay, it's never going to accumulate a negative karma. Accumulating negative karma is not based on the action. It's based on the motivation. If this doctor has a prejudice, feelings or think, relatives, or I have to, it doesn't matter what happened to this person laying on the bed and they're taking out the organ and I really need to save that person. If that doctor has that, of course it's going to accumulate negative karma. But if a doctor is just fully committed what his commitment is, it's hard to say it's hard to say going to accumulate negative karma. So it's always depend on the motivation. This is the reason that Jigme said whether the appearance of the non-virtual or virtuous actions, the big or small, it's not the line of like, okay, it's a really bad karma or this is not a bad karma. Everything depends on the motivation. Maybe action looks really, really bad, but the motivation is good. So I don't think I have a perfect answer for that. Oh yeah, definitely it's going to accumulate negative karma. Do you have something to add? No?
No, I think that was what I would answer.
Wow, we're one-minded.
Mine's definitely not as good as Rinpoche's though.
Yes.
I have a question about bodhicitta. It seems like it's difficult for me to really feel bodhicitta.
Okay.
And I want to know more about how to develop that.
Okay. It is hard. It takes years. But if you don't let it go, as I suggested, do you have Bodhisattva?
The book.
The book?
Oh, yes.
Yeah? Read it. And if you can find some teachings, listen. And don't leave it on intellectual level. Try to apply. But I think, like a beginner bodhisattva, really need to work on 4 measurable practices. And recite it. You guys have it, right? Recite it many times. Maybe recite it 3 times and apply it. Emotional apply. Really pray hard. Everyone can find that happiness. Everyone can liberate from that suffering. Including the person you hate the most. It's hard. I will tell you a story. It's kind of personal, but it's a good one. When I met Allison, many years ago, it's a decade. So I told her how to practice or develop the bodhicitta. She was doing mudra practice. Some of you know what mudra practice is. And I asked her to visualize the person who hate the most while she was doing 100,000 prostrations. Was hard for her, but the end, she really being able to let go of the resentment towards that person. So I think this is also another way we can really let go of hatred, resentment, and dislike feelings towards others. So when we're reciting this, it's not partial, it's impartial. Especially people who we dislike the most, we should pray them to liberate from suffering, finding peace and happiness. So 4 measurable practices really, really essential and important to be the foundation for bodhicitta. So repeat like 1 line many times and focus on, apply that meaning. And then repeat it and apply that. Work with each 4 measurable qualities. Maybe 1 week. The first, and then another week, another week, another week, then you will feel something. You feel physically, you feel something. I'm not saying 4 weeks is enough, but it really, in Tongqing tradition, 100 days of like really working on for measurable practices, only for measurable qualities. Then that is the foundation to develop the aspirational bodhicitta and then engage the bodhicitta. The best thing is reading and receiving about Weber Bodhisattva, bodhicitta teachings, Lojong teachings over and over again, and then apply. Then you will start to feel.
Did I answer something?
Yes, of course.
So I'm similar to you. Like I've been receiving teachings on bodhicitta since I met Rinpoche, before I met Rinpoche, so 20 years. And I find it a really difficult practice to connect with, like still, because in order to feel bodhicitta, we have to let go of so many of our personal preferences. So we have to realize the thing that's standing between us and bodhicitta are all these personal wishes that we have for ourselves. And the reason why Rinpoche is telling you to read Way of the Bodhisattva is because when you apply Way of the Bodhisattva, all of Shantideva's instructions are how we peel away those personal preferences one by one. And then once we start to do that, bodhicitta starts to make more sense. But when we're totally caught up in the personal preferences we have, it's always choosing between us and someone else. And for the normal person, we're always going to choose ourselves. So we have to do something to really start to peel away those layers that are on top of our own heart. Or else, we can make the bodhicitta aspiration, and I think even like the aspiration of 4 immeasurables. But for me, I think that there are blessings that come from making those prayers, because lots and lots of lineage masters have made those prayers. There are blessings that come with those prayers, but for me, it is not as powerful as applying Lojong. When I apply the meaning of Way of the Bodhisattva to myself, like, for example, chapter 6 on patience. If I pick any of those verses, and then I see myself be impatient, and I apply the meaning of that verse, it's a very different experience for me than thinking may all sentient beings have equanimity free of anger and desire. Like, that experience is very personal for me when I have to apply tolerance to other people. So I think both, they're very complementary. But Rinpoche grew up in a culture that's very other-centered. So like for Tibetans, it's very natural to put others before yourself. Little kids put others before themselves. If Rinpoche is with his nieces and nephews and like their little kids, and Rinpoche says, like, give me your toy, give me your food, give me whatever, they're happy. They give him whatever he asks for. Rinpoche is with my niece and he says, can I have a sip of your water? And she screams. It's a completely different experience. And the way, even children, it's true. Rinpoche was like, I don't even want to see your niece right now. She wouldn't share her water with me. It's water. He's like, she's 30 years old. How can she be that attached to a glass of water? But that is the way that we're raised. And that shows how thick those personal preferences we have are. And so, if you grew up in an other-centered culture, maybe if you're reciting the 4 immeasurable prayers, the blessings of the lineage and reciting those things over and over again is going to really transform you. But I have to say that for me, Way of the Bodhisattva is what transforms me, because I'm just too selfish. I just have to be honest, I'm just too selfish, and I just want things how I want them to be. And so I need something really strong to peel that away. And then once that starts to be peeled away, I think it opens up and we can start to catch a glimpse, that's what bodhicitta would be like. And then we can move on from there. We have to catch that glimpse even of like what it would be like to let our heart let more people in. And then I just wanted to mention when Rinpoche had me do prostrations towards my enemy, that wasn't the way that I did it. I had them doing prostrations. I mean, they were in front of me, but I did prostrations also with them. And I really tried to focus on them also doing activities that would bring their enlightenment, So I always try to visualize. When I'm visualizing, I try to see everybody practicing the Dharma together, and I want to be a person that uses that connection, that negative connection between me and her, to practice the Dharma together and to increase my Dharma practice, to increase her Dharma practice. And so I think there's so many different skillful ways in the teachings that bodhicitta is incorporated. If we understand what the teachings are intended, like Rinpoche explains that to me, so of course I know, but it's not that self-apparent when you just are reading it by yourself. But the teachings are approaching bodhicitta in so many different ways. So if you're doing formal practice, there's something going on. If you're reciting the four immeasurables, there's something going on. But then if you're engaging with wave of bodhisattva, there's something else going on. And so if we can rely on all these different methods, I think we do start to get it. But I have to say, really, I remember when we were consecrating our Padmasambhava statue, when our Padmasambhava statue came into the shrine, so that was only 3 years ago maybe, I remember really spontaneously thinking, may this really benefit all sentient beings. And I couldn't remember a time when, without thinking of it, that I just thought of bodhicitta like that. And I was like, wow, that's what it would be like to really have bodhicitta, and it's effortless, and to have that thought. So I think working up to that level, it takes a lot of work. We have to start way down here on the ground, and then peel all that icky stuff away. I mean, it makes you feel a lot better, but when you're doing it, it's really icky. I mean, seeing all those layers of selfishness, so that's what I wanted to add.
That's wonderful. And then the last thing is, I guarantee you, well, Bodhisattva transform people. There is a group of students I have in Colorado. I started to teach them from the day they almost entered the Buddha Dharma until now. The day I met them, when I compared the thing, how soft they are, how cheerful they are, how kind they are, how peaceful they are, how friendly they are with the Dharma brothers and the sisters. It's not my blessing, it's the combination of the teaching, the path of well Bodhisattva, and their effort. So, well Bodhisattva path really can transform. Maybe you're thinking, some of you are thinking, oh yeah, he is amazing monk. I was not. I was a really bad boy. But I transformed, really, I'm not telling you, I'm telling you the truth. I transformed by well Bodhisattva path and practice. My Lama taught us well Bodhisattva whole year in a retreat and made me go by reading line by line well Bodhisattva, memorized a commentary well Bodhisattva text like this big. Whole year, I remember how much that helped me and how much that still helping me. That connection where I have with well Bodhisattva. So I really think this culture and Buddhism and the Buddhists in the West have to have well Bodhisattva path to support our Vajrayana path. I do not blame on you connecting with Mahamudra Dzogpa Chenpo. It's not your fault. It makes sense. But to be able to realize those practices need a really strong foundation, solid foundation, which is well Bodhisattva.
So just a quick question on the commentaries to the Way of the Bodhisattva.
Mm-hmm.
So I know Patrul Rinpoche was famous for being able to teach from different commentaries depending on his audience. But for people who may be new to it, do you think we should just stick with one commentary, or do you think if we study one commentary, then we should study another tradition's commentary, or do you think that would cause too much confusion?
Well, I think root text.
Mm-hmm.
Study the root text, and then translate it by Pamakar. We use that. I feel pretty comfortable with that text. And then Rinpoche's student, Khampo Gompa's commentary. It contains a lot of instructions from other lineages. So I do not think reading different commentaries on Vaibhava Bodhisattva, studying Vaibhava Bodhisattva, is not going to bring a lot of confusion, except the chapter 9. Chapter 9 is really hard to understand, but have a lot of debates. You know?
Is that the wisdom one?
Yeah.
The wisdom chapter.
So other than that, I think most of the students who are working on Vaibhava Bodhisattva are only focusing on the root text. And then I teach Cambodiangas like a really short commentary right now. But I really think Khampo Gompa's commentary is really like complete for the students. And then 37 practices of Bodhisattva. If you have this foundation or support, one of those practices, Vaibhava Bodhisattva or 37 practices of Bodhisattva, then one Lama is commanded to teach whatever teaching. If you do not let go of this Vaibhava Bodhisattva, then teachings, practice you are doing is become much solid, and you will feel the connection more and more. The more you practice Vaibhava Bodhisattva, the more you can purify your habitual patterns. And at the same time, you can accumulate a lot of merit. To be able to realize the Vajrayana, we need strong purification and merit. So when we have more merit, we can connect with the Vajrayana path more. Deeper. Okay, what's your name?
My name is Nate.
Why are you here?
I'm in town for a wedding, and I've had some spiritual practice, and I looked this up and saw that I was here.
You live here?
I don't. I live in Boston right now,
Oh,
in Massachusetts. I arrived this morning, a couple hours ago.
yeah.
My question is concerning about choosing a path, sticking to one thing, because much of my life has been spent hopping around to different things. And then once I got into spirituality, I was at a Zen monastery for a year and a half. That opened me up to seeing how all the different traditions are different flavors of leading to the same well, I suppose. And I have tremendous difficulty committing, but at the same time, I've noticed that as I have committed more and more, that there has been more depth. But I still don't feel comfortable committing to one thing, so I wonder if you had any suggestions about how to spot where I might be just afraid of commitment versus it not being right to commit yet, or something like that.
Can you answer that first?
Sure. Well, I think that Americans have a tendency to think I think Americans have a tendency to think that we can really understand the intention of every path, first of all, enough to decide that they're all doing the same thing. Maybe that is or isn't true. Something that we should examine more. And I also think that Americans have a great tendency not to commit. So that's another just sort of cultural flaw that we have. I think it has more to do with our lack of understanding the importance of all of the different traditional elements of one tradition and how all of those things work together in order to bring about the realization of that particular path. So, for example, if we did hop around or try to blend certain things together, certainly we would miss all the depth of that particular path. As to like you personally, not knowing right now if you're afraid to commit or if it's not the right time to commit, it seems like you have to look inside and see if you've really found something that resonates with you, like in a deep way. And I say that because I don't think there is no human being on this planet that could make me stop practicing what I practice. I connect so deeply with what I practice that it's impossible I would ever give it up. And I think that I have that intention when I committed to it. And if I didn't have that intention, I certainly couldn't commit to it the way that I have. You know, so I guess I don't know what it takes to realize that you've connected that deeply. But I think it's important to, you know, just to have some self-examination to try to figure it out. You know, with the Zen that you're practicing, obviously, if you focus solely on that path, you're definitely going to go much deeper. But on the other hand, if that connection that you have to that practice isn't in any way like fabricated, it's not going to work long term.
Great. So really good. Don't be the monkey to go to cornfield. If we are being a spiritual practitioner like a monkey, and this is what Lama's instructions. You guys have a lot of cornfields, right? When monkeys go to cornfields, pick one, put it here, see another one, and you reach this hand and this drops. And at the end of the field, there's no corn. So we do not want to be a spiritual practitioner like a monkey going in cornfield. We should have something at the end of the field. And something tasty. It's I hope this is not going to bother you, but that's something we really need to think. Having a spiritual path, we need something to help us when we need it the most. But if we have so many things, then it's just like so many information here, and then like we don't know which one is going to help us. But if we, as Allison was saying, deepening one, then that is the one. In Tibetan tradition, masters say, no one
Realize all.
Master of one technique, and you can master of all. Okay?
So we'll end with our English dedication. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By this merit, may all obtain omniscience, may it defeat enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. Rinpoche, on behalf of the group, I just want to say thank you so much for coming to Kansas City. It's been a real blessing, and Allison, thank you so much too.
Thank you so much. Thank you for working hard to remain in the center. It's not easy to run a center. So if you are part of the Sangha, support them. Be a part of it. It's a merit. It's a purification. And it helps your spiritual path. It's the Bodhisattva activity. Newcomers, when they come, they have the place. If this center is not here, Even there are some people want to practice Dharma, they cannot have the home. So Dharma center is the Dharma home, spiritual home. So when we have a home, all parents and the family members have to take that responsibility to make sure pay off the bills and all the things, water bill, electricity, and then our insurance, all kinds of things. So it's not easy to run a center. I don't have a lot of centers, but I have 2 centers, really good centers. I don't need to participate to worry these things, but it's good to really realize that how precious having a Dharma center in this city and how convenient that it is, and be a part and support it. That's the generosity, paramita of generosity. That is the Bodhisattva practice. So we have to accumulate tiny, tiny drops of merit and fill a huge container. So that's the way we slowly accumulate merit and then purify our karma. So, thank you.